And so if you don't believe in mask mandates and you don't believe in vaccine mandates, then how are you going to get out of this?
Instead of trying to convince people to do the things you think they should do, instead you just yell at them and you don't explain things to them. And then when they don't do it, you say, you are the problem. The reason that a lot of people are not vaccinating, according to the left, of course, it's the right and Tucker Carlson and all of that. But the real reason that nobody is, or a bunch of people are not vaccinated, including a lot of people in blue states, is because institutional trust is down. Now, the left believes that the institutions should be trusted no matter what, because institutions are more important than actual human beings. This is why you will hear people like Anthony Fauci say, if you contradict me, it's because you don't believe in the science, right? And it's like, well, no, you're not the science, trademark, right? You are actually just a scientist, and apparently very often a guy who makes mistakes about that. The institutional trust problem continues unabated. You can't trot out Andrew Cuomo to kill all the olds in New York and then also trot out Andrew Cuomo to be your lead spokesperson on Get the Vax. You can't do that. It's just not going to be effective. And yet that's exactly what's happening. So here was Andrew Cuomo yesterday explaining that you should get vaccinated, which, by the way, I agree with. But when Andrew Cuomo says it, I'm like, I'm not sure I believe that you are the proper spokesperson for this. Especially when you say things like this, right? Andrew Cuomo, who lied about like half a dozen things in his state, he says, I've told you the truth since day one.
I have told you the facts on COVID from day one. Whether they were easy, whether they were hard, I told you the truth. While a lot of people were talking politics, and a lot of people were talking theory, and a lot of people were trying to deny because they didn't want to deliver bad news, I told you the truth. You know why? Because I believe in you.
Why won't people trust our institutions? The man is still covering up how many people died in nursing homes by reclassifying people who got sick in nursing homes and lived in nursing homes as not dying in nursing homes if they died in a hospital. Meanwhile, you've got Jen Psaki over at the White House. She was asked specifically, there are some people who were infected at the White House by the Texas Democrats who showed up on their doorstep. By the way, I am amused. The Texas Democrats are now doing like GoFundMe fundraisers for ramen or something. It's like, I'm pretty sure they can afford that. Like, do they have credit cards? How does that work? In any case, apparently they infected a bunch of Democrats in the White House. And Jen Psaki was asked, who in the White House has a COVID infection? Here was her answer.
Has the White House had any additional staffers test positive for COVID-19?
I think, again, our policy, just to reiterate it, which we announced last week, is that if there's an individual who has close proximity to any of the four principles as defined by the White House Medical Unit in line with CDC guidelines on what that looks like, we will then make that information available and immediately public to all of you. So that has not been the case since we announced that policy, no.
So I'm supposed to trust you guys about like COVID vaccinations and COVID infections, and you won't even say who in the White House has COVID? And by the way, this was not the rule during the Trump administration. If a low-level Trump administration official got COVID, then it was like, okay, that was big national news. Meanwhile, Joe Biden gets irritated by even being asked questions. So yesterday, there was an announcement from the Veterans Administration that if you work in a VA hospital, they're going to mandate that you get vaccinated, which actually, I got to say, I don't think is like the world's worst policy. Again, if you're working in a hospital, you're literally working with people who are ill and have serious pre-existing conditions every single day, many of whom can't get vaccinated. So that's a different situation than you're working a bus at the MTA. Okay, but that's not really the point. The point here is that Joe Biden gets angry when people ask him questions. The first rule, by the way, of convincing people to believe you as an authority figure is explaining yourself. Joe Biden never wants to explain himself because he's sort of an old crotchety dude who believes that everybody should just believe what he has to say.
Veterans Affairs is going to have a mandate.
You are such a pain in the neck, but I'm going to answer your question because we've known each other for so long. It has nothing to do with Iraq. The answer, no. I'll answer your question. Yes, Veteran Affairs is going to, in fact, require that all docs working in facilities are going to have to be vaccinated.
You're such a pain in the neck. You're a pain in the neck. If you ask questions to Joe Biden, you're a pain in the neck. Jen Psaki, yesterday, she suggested that we're going to continue to keep travel bans in place from various places on Earth, despite the fact that it's not working. Right? The Delta variant is already widely seeded in the United States. There is no data to suggest that preventing travel from Europe to the United States is going to cut down on the number of infections in the United States, considering that the Delta variant is running roughshod through the population that is unvaccinated. But here she is, again, proposing policies that don't make sense.
Given where we are today, and I think you've seen this, and those of you who have asked, we've confirmed this for, with the Delta variant, we will maintain existing travel restrictions at this point for a few reasons. The more transmissible Delta variant is spreading, both here and around the world. Driven by the Delta variant, cases are rising here at home, particularly among those who are unvaccinated, and appear likely to continue in the weeks ahead.
Okay, maybe the reason why people don't trust any of these authority figures is because these authority figures have not earned the trust of the American people. By the way, there's a bipartisan failure here. If you don't explain your policy and you don't do it clearly and concisely, and you don't take seriously concerns, nobody is going to pay attention to you. And instead, the move of the left is to browbeat. And I think there's a specific political reason for that. Because if you browbeat, then you can treat anybody who doesn't listen as an enemy. Instead of trying to convince people to do the things you think they should do, instead, you just yell at them and you don't explain things to them. And then when they don't do it, you say, you are the problem. You're the problem. For example, last night on CNN, you had Allison Camerata, and she was grilling the mayor of a Missouri town on why he opposed a mask mandate. Now, the reason to oppose a mask mandate at this point for the vaccinated is because the vaccinated are vaccinated. Okay, and the idea that we are going to force people who are vaccinated to mask up to protect the unvaccinated who have had every opportunity to go get the vaccine and still have the opportunity to go get the vaccine. The data to support a mask mandate on the vaccinated is really, really weak at best, and it is a serious violation of freedom for people who did the thing that they were supposed to do. But here are the hosts of CNN, Allison Camerata and Victor Blackwell, trying to browbeat the Wildwood mayor, Jim Ballin, saying, you need a mask mandate and you need it right now. Please explain why you think that a mask mandate is necessary from the government at this time. Seriously, they won't. They'll just browbeat him.
I just want to give people a status report of where your county is. Hospitalizations are up. The number of people in ICUs are up. The number of people on ventilators are up. So why not make people wear masks indoors for a little while until you get the numbers down?
Well, let me ask you, and I don't mean this to be insulting, but we've had some people who have been against local mask mandates answer this question in a way that would lead us in a different part of the conversation. Do you believe that masks work to block and mitigate the virus?
People are dying in St. Louis County. They're on ventilators. They're in the hospital. And so if you don't believe in mask mandates and you don't believe in vaccine mandates, then how are you going to get out of this?
Okay, so that is not journalism at this point. This is just browbeating. By the way, I'm looking right now at St. Louis County, the number of deaths, the 7-day rolling average in St. Louis County of deaths, this is according to the New York Times. 1. That is the 7-day rolling average in St. Louis County. What you get from CNN is people are dying. Everyone's dying. By the way, this guy's answer was actually quite good, right? His answer was, if the standard is now going to be that every time there's an uptick in COVID, and without vaccinations and so forth, it stays around in perpetuity, presumably, we'll be doing masks in perpetuity forever. He is correct. Emergency authority is to be used when there's an emergency. And if you prolong the emergency by suggesting that people who don't do what you say are the emergency, you have now created the impetus to cram down whatever you want for all time. And the left is in love with this. You're going to see them do this on global warming. You're going to see them do this on quote-unquote income inequality. You're going to see them do this with regard to the quote-unquote racial reckoning. Everything is an emergency. And if it's an emergency, you require emergency powers. And the emergency can never end because if anyone opposes you, their mere presence on the world stage is the emergency, even if the externalities no longer exist because everyone has the ability to get a vaccine if you're an adult. Okay, this is a power grab, pure and simple. It is scary, and it should frighten anybody who gives a damn about baseline freedom in the United States. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.